Hey, my lovelies. Today I want to talk about something that has been popping up for me lately. Uh, Truth be told, I actually came up with this episode idea at 2 a.m. Any other menopausal women out there who are awake in the middle of the night? You know what I'm talking about, right? So what do I want to talk to you about today? I want to talk to you about the cost of staying stuck, right? I think there's so many women out there in direct selling and network marketing out there who know they want more, right? You want more sales, you want more confidence, you want more income, more consistency, more customers, more team members, more success. Are you nodding along here? And yet they're stuck. Are you stuck? Not because they don't want success, not because they aren't capable, but because they've convinced themselves that staying where they are is somehow safer, right? And honestly, I understand that, right? Because growth can feel scary. Learning new things can feel overwhelming, sometimes really overwhelming, right? Putting yourself out there can feel uncomfortable. Doing Facebook Lives, recording reels, showing your face, learning AI, none of those things necessarily feel easy in the beginning, right? And I totally get that because I've been there. I've walked this path, right? But today, I want to have an honest conversation about something many women never stop to think about. And that's this, that doing nothing has a cost too, right? Staying stuck has a cost too. And I think sometimes we spend so much time thinking about the cost of change that we never stop to think about the cost of staying exactly where we are. So let's talk about that today. Are you excited? Let me know. Of course, depending on where you're listening slash watching, you've got some various different commenting options, but always love hearing from you, and love hearing what you think of my podcast episodes, right? So let's start by talking about how staying stuck feels safe, right? And I think one of the reasons so many people stay stuck is because it feels comfortable, right? And comfort feels safe, right? If I don't do reels, nobody can judge me. If I don't go live, nobody will see me mess up, right? How many times have you had this conversation in your head, right? If I don't put myself out there, nobody can reject me. If I don't learn something new, I don't have to feel uncomfortable, right? And honestly, I think every single one of us has experienced that. I know I have, right? Because as human beings, we're naturally drawn to safety, right? To being safe, to being comfortable, right? We like certainty. We like what's familiar, right? We like staying where we know what to expect, right? Not knowing what might happen feels scary. Okay. But here's the problem, comfort and growth don't usually live in the same place, right? Um, and I know that's something I've seen over and over again. Okay, I'm having it pop up in my head, this phrase, but I'm going to wait. It's a bit of a saying that I do share quite a lot. Some people have heard me say it before, but first off, let me finish what I wanted to say first. Because I do want to say confidence doesn't come first, right? Confidence comes after action. Success doesn't come from staying comfortable. It comes from growing, right? And growth nearly always requires us to stretch ourselves, right? Now, here's what popped into my head as I was talking. Um, and those of you who've been in my world for a while have probably heard me say it at some point. Sometimes you've just got to put your big girl panties on, find your 20 seconds of courage, and go for it. Go do that thing that is stepping outside of your comfort zone, because outside of your comfort zone, that's where you're going to find the success, right? Because staying stuck actually costs more than you think, right? And I think many people believe that doing nothing costs nothing, right? But that's simply not true, because staying stuck has a price. Sometimes it's a financial price, sometimes and it's an emotional price. Sometimes it's about lost opportunities, and sometimes it's about confidence, right? A loss of confidence or not growing in confidence, right? And I really think this is something worth thinking about. Because maybe the biggest cost isn't actually investing in yourself. Maybe the biggest cost is actually never changing. So think about that one. Maybe the biggest cost is never changing. Okay. So then let's talk about some of the various different costs and different areas this can be, right? So let's start with the obvious one, right? The cost to your income, right? Money. That's the most obvious one, right? Now, this isn't about becoming money obsessed, but let's be honest, right? Most women started their direct selling or network marketing business because they wanted something more. Extra income, flexibility, helping with the bills, being able to take the family on holidays, having choices, freedom, maybe your retirement planning, right? Whatever it may be. And if you stay stuck for another year, what might that cost you? How many customers could you have helped? How many sales could you have made? How many company rewards could you have earned? How much extra income could have come into your household? Because waiting isn't free, doing nothing isn't free, right? And I think we sometimes forget that, right? It's just staying where you are. If nothing, another saying, phrase that I love is, if nothing changes, nothing changes, right? And sometimes that change is stepping outside of your comfort zone, right? So the cost to your confidence, that can be a really, really huge one, right? Because I'm sure you've heard me say it before, especially if you've been hanging out in my world for a while. Confidence isn't something that magically arrives one day, right? We're not born with it. It doesn't magically turn up, right? Confidence grows when we take action, right? It grows when we know what are the right things to be doing, and then we go and do them, and we take that consistent action, and the confidence around what you're doing absolutely grows, right? And the confidence is built when we do things that scare us, right? When we step outside of our comfort zone. You know, when you do that first reel, when you do that first Facebook Live, right? When you do your first selfie, your first video, attend your first training or workshop, whether that's online or an in-person one. Maybe it's going along to something that your company has provided, that you've like some sort of in-person training or conference, right? And you don't know anyone there. Like, that can be really scary, right? To go along to something like that. But you know that if you do these things, you are going to be better off for it, right? And you'll actually grow your confidence because you'll discover that you actually survived, going to that conference or training where you didn't know anybody. You survived turning on the camera and going live, or, turning on the camera at an online training, right? So that other people at the training can actually see who you are. So many things that you can do these, and you suddenly discover it wasn't actually as bad as you thought it might have been, right? Because, and they're worth doing. It's worth taking these steps outside of your comfort zone, because confidence grows because we prove to ourselves that we can actually do these things, right? But when we stay stuck, our confidence stays stuck too, right? And I think so many women are waiting to feel confident before they start, right? When really confidence comes because you start, not before. And look, I remember when I first joined a direct selling company back in 2006, I had no idea what I was doing. I had never done anything like it before. I had no idea if it was going to work, but I was like, you know what? I want something for me. I want to bring some extra income in. I want the flexibility to do that around the fact that I've got young kids. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to dive in. I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to do the training. I'm going to get the support and the help I need to build a successful business, right? Little did I realize back then in 2006, God, 20 years ago, that I would go on to build a multi-million-dollar direct selling business and go on to become a business coach for women in direct selling and network marketing. Another one was stepping outside of my comfort zone, and I've maybe shared this story before. Back in the day of doing in-home parties, and this was in the early days of, having started. where I got a booking for an in-home party at a place in a town. Like, I live in the country, in this town that was like an hour and a half away, that I'd actually never been to before. I actually had no idea where it was. I didn't know how to get there, right? And the lady that wanted to book, she's like, will you come to this town? And I'm like, and in my head, I'm going, oh my God, I don't even know where that is. I'm going to like have to look it up on a map. I don't know where it is. And it's like, come on, Penny, just say yes, right? Because it would have been really easy to say no, right? It would have been safe to say no, right? It was a little bit scary to say yes because suddenly I was going to have to find out where this town was. I was going to have to work out how to get there. I was going to have to drive to this place that I've never been to before. But I said yes, right? Put my big girl panties on, took my 20 seconds of courage, and I said yes. And you know what? It was a highly successful party. I got tons of bookings out of it. And you know what? I suddenly felt more confident about going to places I hadn't been before, right? Anyway, there's that story. Hope you liked it. Another cost is the cost of time, right? And this one really hits home for me, right? Because time is precious. I do regularly say, there's not enough hours in the day. And then when it comes to home renos, for those of you who don't know, my husband, amongst many other hats that he wears, is also a builder, a carpenter, right? And we've been doing some home renos for quite some time now. And, again, when we talk about, well, this still needs doing and that still needs doing. And I have that same conversation with him. There's just not enough hours in his day to get done all the things that I want him to get done, right? Time is something we can't get back, right? And I think so many women say, I'll do it later. I'll start next month. I'll get serious after Christmas. When life settles down, I'll do it, right? I'll go live when I have more confidence, right? I will start posting consistently on Facebook when I know more. I'll start having a try at AI, when I've got time to learn more and things like that, right? And before you know it, another year has passed, right? And then another, and then your business looks very much the same, right? And it's not because you're not good enough. It's not because you don't deserve success, right? But because waiting has become a habit, right? You've got so used to not prioritizing you and what you want to do and learning what it is that you need to know to move forward, right? And I think you get so caught up in that waiting and just putting things off, right? And I do honestly think that that's heartbreaking because when you can be brave, be bold, step outside of your comfort zone, amazing things happen on the other side of your comfort zone, right? And you know what? Time keeps moving whether we move or not, right? So, you can absolutely, you can kind of stay stuck where you are, maybe feeling frustrated that you don't, you're not understanding how to do things, that you feel like, you don't understand anymore what works on Facebook, or maybe it's about you're seeing other people using AI and you're like, well, how do you do that? I've got no idea and it sounds scary and all these sorts of things, right? You can absolutely stay stuck and go, you know what, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. But the thing is, if what you're doing isn't really working, if it's not helping you move forward, if it's not helping you achieve the goals that you want, then something's got to change, right? Let's go back to that phrase. If nothing changes, nothing changes, right? And your comfort zone can be expensive, right? We're sort of talking today about what are the costs of staying stuck, right? And one of those is your comfort zone, right? Can be expensive. And I honestly think this is one of the biggest lessons I've learned, right? Over the years, 20 years, 16 years in direct selling, and the last 5 years, there was a little overlap there, where I have been coaching in this space. And you know what? Your comfort zone feels safe. 100%. I 100% get that. And I'm sure and so many of you do as well. But it can also become very expensive, right? Expensive financially, expensive emotionally, expensive in missed opportunities, right? Did you miss that company incentive trip? You know, did you miss out on the extra bonus income because you didn't quite get to a certain amount in sales, right? Um, it can be expensive in your confidence, right? Because if you're not moving forward, if you don't feel like you're moving forward, if you don't feel like you're achieving the things that can really be a hit on your confidence, right? And it's expensive in dreams that never get pursued, right? You kind of go, oh yeah, one day, how cool would that be? You see others achieving like a company incentive trip, and you're like, oh, that'd be so cool, but I could never do that, right? Absolutely, you can do it. You've just got to learn the things that work to grow your business, show up consistently, step outside the comfort zone, and you can actually absolutely achieve those things, right? um because well, comfort feels good in the moment, right? It really creates that future we're hoping for, right? And hope is not a business plan, right? So you can kind of be going, like, I hope one day I will earn a company incentive trip. Well, you know what, hope is not a business plan, right? You got to learn what it is you need to do, and you need to take those actions. And often that is going to involve you stepping outside of your comfort zone, right? And so the cost of staying inside of your comfort zone is really those missed opportunities, right? And I think that's something that we all need to remember, right? And I need some water. So excuse me, tickling my throat. All right, so let's talk about. I want to talk about what are you really afraid of, and I really want you to have a think about this one, right? So as you're listening in, have a think about these sort of questions and stuff that I'm asking, right? And are you answering like yes to this, right? Um, and I don't believe women are lazy, right? Not at all, right? What I think is that a lot of women are scared, right? And this comes from my experience of coaching, thousands of women over the years, right? I think most women, not everybody, but most women are scared of being judged, are scared of looking silly, scared of failure, right? Scared of failing, right? Who has that fear of failure? Afraid of technology, right? Afraid of AI, maybe even afraid of Facebook, right? Maybe, like so many, look, if you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, you didn't grow up with Facebook. I didn't grow up with Facebook, right? And so sometimes it can feel scary, right? And so it's like, again, and then we've got AI coming out in these last couple of years. And again, it's like, oh my God, I don't know how this works, right? And so, you're scared of trying these things that could make a difference to you, right? Could make a difference to you and your business. And you feel scared, you're scared about doing reels because again, people might judge you. People might think you look silly, right? A lot of women are afraid people are going to say no, right? Guess what? That's a completely normal thing, right? Oh, this one, big one. People think they're annoying. Oh my goodness, the number of times I've heard from women in direct selling and network marketing that they're worried about being annoying, right? But generally you're not, right? And if they're not, if they're annoyed by you, you know what? They're not your people, right? You will find not everybody's going. You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, right? And that's fine because you think about it. Not everybody else out there is your cup of tea, okay? And the people who are going to resonate with you, who like what you're doing, right? They're not finding you annoying, okay? And that's what. So I'm just trying to have a bit of a wriggle on my chair for those of you just listening, not watching. I'm wriggling. But they're, people, you won't be annoying to the people that resonate with you, right? But I do want to say that all of these fears that I've just mentioned, right? Looking silly, fear of failure, technology, AI, understanding Facebook, being judged, saying no. These fears are all completely normal, right? I've had these fears. I'm sure you've had these fears. We all have fears, right? That's just normal, right? But what if the very thing you're avoiding is the thing that could actually change everything, right? What if doing the reel opens the door to a new customer? What if going live helps someone trust you? What if learning AI saves you hours every week? What if learning the right Facebook strategies changes your business? What if the life you want is sitting on the other side of some temporary discomfort? Okay, stepping outside your comfort zone, right? Because it's not about working harder. I do want to make that really clear, right? And it's not about working harder at all. I don't want you to be working harder. I want you to be working, I want you to learn how to work smarter. Okay. It's about learning how to work smarter, not harder, right? Because simply working harder isn't the answer. Okay. What matters is learning the right strategies, understanding how Facebook works, how the Facebook algorithm works, right? How you get your posts seen by others. Knowing what to post matters. Building your confidence matters. Learning how to create conversations, right? How do you start conversations? Learning how to do that. That matters. Learning how to attract customers matters, right? Attraction marketing. I'm sure you've all heard that word thrown, that sort of buzz phrase thrown around, attraction marketing. It's a thing. You can learn it. I teach it inside of my Beehive program, right? Learning how to recruit the right people matters, right? Not everybody is the right person, the right fit to join your team. It is the reality, right? And when you feel like you're doing heaps, right? You're spending lots of time in your business, but you're doing it without strategies, it leaves you feeling frustrated, right? And I'm sure you've had moments, right, where you're like, I'm doing all these things, I'm spending all this time doing these things, and you don't feel like you're making any progress. That is frustrating. 100% that is frustrating. Absolutely get it. Had times where I feel that same frustration, right? But the thing that makes a difference, right, is understanding what the right strategies are. And I think also it's why having support and learning from people who have gone before you, who've already done what you want to do. I think that's why that matters so much, right? Understanding the right strategies to be using, having that support and encouragement, learning from people who actually know what they're doing, right? That have actually done what you are trying to do, okay? And, I see, one thing I see over and over again inside my Beehive program, and I'll always tell you about my Beehive program because I know it is the best place to be if you are struggling to get your direct selling or network marketing business to where you want it to be using Facebook. If you are feeling confused, overwhelmed, how do you use it? What do you do? All of those things, right? My Beehive program is the place where you can learn all of that, right? Learn it all and get all the support, right? And the women who are getting the incredible results inside of my program aren't necessarily the women with the most experience or the most time or even the most confidence, right? They're often just the women who decide that they're no longer willing to stay stuck, right? Just a handful of my members. I mean, so many women over the years, past members, current members. I mean, we've got a past member, Janice, who I actually interviewed in a podcast a little while back. She had already been with Posty Fashions for like nearly 30 years, but she came to me to learn how to use Facebook, and suddenly her business took off using Facebook, right? And she had months where she absolutely like doubled and tripled what she'd been doing previously. And Janice is, she's in her 70s, right? So, anyone can come and learn. One of my current members, Lou, she's with Sunsea. She has tripled her sales and promoted up the ranks, right? Since she joined my program. Cindy is with Amare. Love Cindy. Cindy, if you're listening. she jumps to mind because she has more than doubled her sales and her commissions since joining. She loves the program. She loves the encouragement, the support, and the learnings. And she's actually just attended her first overseas company incentive trip in Hawaii. So exciting. It was really funny actually because the first overseas company incentive trip I ever earned back in, I actually don't remember what year it was. I think it was maybe like 2008, 2009, was actually Hawaii as well. So I thought that was a funny coincidence with Cindy. We've got Leanne. Leanne is with the Larav. And in the 4 months after she joined, she sold more in those 4 months than she had in the previous 9 months. Like that's huge, right? Jamie is with Senegence. And the thing I really love about Jamie is she's really learned the value of consistency. I'm going to say Jamie has been doing a reel a day since October last year. Like that's just crazy. As well as, the other bits and pieces, she's learned what the strategies are. She's been consistent and is now reaping those rewards, right? She's getting more sales than she used to. And recently she double ranked inside the space of 1 month, right? And that's amazing. It's really exciting. I think I'm trying to remember whether I think she was one of maybe 3 in the company in Australia that did it, or was it worldwide? I can't remember. Jamie could tell us, right? But huge, right? And, Jamie's a dairy farmer who does skincare and makeup with Senegence. Like, I love it. Love it, love it, love it. But anyway, those results didn't happen overnight, right? And look, there's so many stories, so many women that I've worked with over the years. They're just a handful, right? But, those results didn't happen overnight, right? They didn't happen because these women were lucky. They happened because they learned, right? They happened because they implemented, right? They took action, right? What is it? Sometimes some of the girls in the Beehive say, drink Penny's Kool-Aid, right? If you do what I tell you to do, it will work, right? If you do what I tell you to do and you do it consistently, it works, right? You'll see the results, right? They learned, they implemented, they took action, they kept showing up, right? Consistency, consistency, consistency. And little by little, everything changed. Okay, for them and so many others. And I want that for you too, right? It is why I do my podcast full of tips and tricks and ideas, things to get you thinking about what you want out of your business, what do you want out of life, practical strategies. And probably the most sort of the biggest sort of maybe practical strategy to take away from today is showing up consistently especially on social media. Show up consistently in your business and stepping outside of your comfort zone, right? Try something different. Try something that you haven't done before or something that you haven't done for a really long time, right? Okay, now this is where I actually want you to stop and think. I want you to close your eyes, unless, of course, you're listening to me while you're driving. Don't do that. If you're out walking while you listen to me, pause, step to the side off the path, and I want you to just stand there and close your eyes for a minute, right? Because I want you to imagine yourself 1 year from now. And I want you to picture 2 versions of yourself, okay? So, version 1. You keep putting things off, you keep waiting, you keep doubting yourself. You stay inside your comfort zone, and 12 months from now, not much has changed. Okay, that's version 1. Now picture version 2. You decide to learn, you decide to grow. You build your confidence, you take imperfect action, you keep showing up, you stop waiting. And 12 months from now, your business looks different. Your confidence looks different. I often think that's one of the best things is when your confidence grows, right? Your income looks different. Your belief in yourself looks different, right? Which version do you want to become? I want you to think about that, all right? Which version do you want to become? So, lovely. I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Change has a cost, absolutely. But staying stuck has a cost too. So maybe the question isn't, can I afford to change? Maybe the better question is, can I afford to stay exactly where I am? Because your dreams matter, right? Your goals matter. And I truly believe that you're capable of so much more than you sometimes give yourself credit for, right? And you don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to know everything, but you do need to be willing, right? Willing to learn, willing to grow, willing to step outside your comfort zone, willing to try new things, right? Because sometimes the biggest breakthroughs happen after we've decided, right, that we're no longer willing to stay stuck. So until next time, keep believing in yourself, keep growing, keep showing up, and keep taking those small steps forward because they really do add up. And if you want to chat about where to next for you in your business, send me a DM in Facebook Messenger. I will see you soon on Facebook. Thanks for listening in and or watching today. Bye for now.